on the gloom. I keep a light on in every room. But when I close my eyes, there are monsters in the dark. Oh, when I close my eyes, there are monsters in the dark. It's all been cleared. There is nothing here to fear. I've scrubbed away every scratch and mark. But when the night brings on the gloom, I keep a light on in every room. But when I close my eyes, there are monsters in the dark. Oh, when I close my eyes, there are monsters in the dark. When the dark, in the dark.
WUSB in Stony Brook. Monsters in the Dark from Maurice Tani from All In, his brand new Little Village release. And Maurice, I want to welcome you to WUSB. How are you?
I'm just fine. It's great to be here, be it virtually.
be it over the telephone line.
Yeah. Well, I think we've gotten used to that kind of interfacing since the, I don't know if you heard about the great global pandemic that was going on. So much of what I do these days is done virtually.
Gosh, it slowed us down. And the good news about WUSB here is that we have a beautiful phone system that I can dial you up and get you live over the air. So we're broadcasting live out of Stony Brook here at 2 in the afternoon on today, the 21st of October. The topic here is All In. I wanted to let you know that about a month ago, I met with Jim Pugh, and I aired our discussion, and I was on the phone with him about his Phantom Blues Band release. But I was so interested in Little Village that I never even talked about Phantom Blues with him. But one of the things he asked me in the discussion was if his publicist was doing a good job. And I said, yeah, great job. And he asked if the audience that he was sending it to was good for his recordings. And I said, absolutely. And I didn't answer it the way I wanted to, but seeing as you and I were just having a little bit of a preliminary talk while the song was playing on the line, it made me think of what I would have said to Jim when he asked me that question about the music that Little Village puts out. And I would say that the audience are serious listeners. They pay attention. They're looking for clever music, well done. And all of those boxes are checked on a Little Village production. And You're All In absolutely fits that mold. So thank you for doing this project.
Thank you for mentioning that. It's good to know that the work is appreciated in the context that we present this stuff. And really, Little Village, for those of you who didn't hear your interview with Jim,
right,
is a nonprofit label that concentrates on presenting music that really wouldn't be of interest to most mainstream record labels. This is stuff that is generally, I'd call it roots Americana. This is stuff that's pretty often very close to the ground. Some of it is, it's all kinds of stuff. And the point being that when you present the cultures of different people across the lines into other cultures, if you aren't familiar with mariachi music, when you're exposed to some good mariachi music and have a chance to sort of sit down and listen to it, you kind of assimilate it and you become more comfortable with that culture. And that, I think that's true for all different types of music, and it's true for all different types of cultures. By exposing ourselves to these other cultures, you grow a sense of empathy. Exposing people to the diversity of American culture in particular, we are growing empathy, which we believe grows a better culture, makes a better world. And that sort of brings me to this album. One of the incredible things about working with a label like this is that I'm exposed to all these different types of artists. Little Village has put out 50 CDs in the past, 6 years or something like that. It's all kinds of stuff. It's indigenous music, it's classical music, it's a lot of blues, it's a lot of R&B, it's some rock. It's we've got a guy on the label, Aki Kumar, who is from Mumbai, India, who does this crazy mashup of 1960s Indian film music, but done in the style of Chicago blues, a lot of Jimmy Reed, that sort of thing. And this is one of those, I call this a chocolate and peanut butter moment, where you just can't believe how well these two things work together. And so working with all these different types of artists on the label, the gospel groups, the jazz guitarists, given me the opportunity to meet, get to know, and be influenced by these people. And All In, my latest record, is sort of a culmination of this. The album is made up of my stuff using a lot of these different artists, like the Sons of the Soul Revivers Church Quartet, or Chris Kane, a great jazz blues technical guitar player. There's all kinds of people on the record. So it gives this album is, I would call it diverse, yet it's still very focused because of the production, the method used with Kid Anderson at Greaseland and Jim Pugh producing the thing.
Yes, and this is Maurice Tani speaking with us live from Berkeley. And Maurice is the songwriter, the singer-songwriter, whose latest project is called All In on Little Village Foundation. And Maurice, I was noticing in your lyrics the clever nature of some of them. You've got some sarcastic humor that you don't have to listen too seriously to pick up on. But after a few of these numbers and listening to your interesting way of expressing words, I thought to myself, gee, this guy might be more than a songwriter. And reading on the liner notes, you said something really, really, really wonderful that I want to share with the audience. And it's on the topic of Little Village and this project. But what you just said, you summarized in these words, if I could just repeat it. In the larger scheme of things, musical genre is a false construct, helpful for describing the location of a particular moment in the vast continuum of music, but there are no real hard borders. Everything good can and should bleed a little or a lot into the roux that is the fluid world of music. That's something I wish I had written, because I've been thinking that for so long and just hadn't, been able to conceptualize it there. So, man.
I think that all art is actually a dialogue between the creators and the consumers of that art. You can create art in a vacuum, I suppose, but for me, the art is this. It's this conversation between the people that create it and the people that consume it. And in order to be part of that conversation, you need to have already sort of been in that conversation. You needed to have been listening to how the conversation was going. So you're talking about things that people already are talking about. You need to be speaking in the same language as the people who are who you're talking to, and so it's this dialogue that goes on, and it's a continuous dialogue. And like any conversation, it morphs, it changes, and it's a fluid, organic thing. And I mean, there are purists out there who believe that their particular genre of music is defined very narrowly. Real rockabilly was between November 1956 and late June of 1957, and if it didn't happen during that period, then it isn't true rockabilly. And it's like that kind of absolute definitions of any given art just seems to me anti-art. And music is the same way. We're all influenced by the other music that's around us, and so this album is influenced by lots of other people on this label. And if this was just a rock label or just a jazz label, it probably would have been a all rock or all jazz or whatever kind of record. But because the label has this diversity at its core, the record itself has a huge amount of great diversity in the way it sounds. And as for the lyrics, well, that's my problem.
Well, it's an excellent representation of all of these elements that you've been describing, Maurice Tani, our guest on this day's afternoon edition of Fermented Radio. I'm Marc Greene, filling in for Chris Sorokin, and If This Be Treason. And right now, on the phone from the Bay Area, is Maurice Tani. We're discussing All In, which is his latest Little Village project. This is the third one you've done with Little Village, Maurice. And how did you meet these guys? What was your first...
Oh, well, I've known Jim Pugh since probably about 1980 or so. We're part of the West Coast scene of musicians that I met him before he started his a 35-year stint with Robert Cray. We go way back, and he's somebody that I know well. And producing these types of records, I did about 8 of my own records before I did these 3 with Little Village, and those were always records that I produced myself, and I had absolute control over every note and everything that happened in them. But I started hearing albums coming out of Kid's Greaseland studio down in San Jose, maybe 7 years ago or so, and I was so impressed that these records, if you heard a good blues or R&B record off of the West Coast in the past 5 or 6 years, I'd give you 50-50 odds it comes out of Greaseland. Doing amazing work down there. It's like our own little Muscle Shoals or something. It's it's a funky studio where everything is already set up. You go down there and you sort of plug into the system. And working with Jim and Kid was a situation where I had heard the work that they had been doing. I wanted that sauce on my own stuff, and so my philosophy was to go down there, give them the songs in the sketchiest possible form that I could, the sketchiest charts. If I had demos, they were the sketchiest demos. If I had already recorded something, I wouldn't play it for them. I wanted them to treat these songs as their own songs. So when it comes time to do the record the basics, my philosophy was to just keep my mouth shut and let them do what they do. So basically, it was a process of releasing control, but that takes a tremendous amount of trust to give somebody else your work and let them do what they do with it, especially when you're used to doing it all yourself. But these guys are just so good, and I really that decision to keep my mouth shut, I think, is one of the most genius moves I've ever made.
Believe me, I wish I had done it at numerous events in my life. You're so right, Maurice. I mean, we've been sharing Little Village for close to 2 years on this program, and to your point about Greaseland and Kid Anderson and what he's doing, and it's beautiful the way that it's very organic. Everyone I've spoken with has described this wholly organic recording process that harkens back to the golden days of shall we say free recording. You know, not in a studio, but in a comfortable environment where we're just tracking what we want to track, and we'll figure it out as it comes together in unison, not single instruments, but let's play everything together while we're together.
That's one of the things about them is that, you know, my previous records were all done primarily through multi-tracking, and it's not that the Greaseland system is a rejection of technology. Not at all. It's still a digital studio, but the basics and as much of it as possible is all recorded at one time, including vocals. It's all recorded at the same time in the same rooms at times. What makes these recordings great is not the technology, but rather the performances and the atmosphere that happens. You know, a lot of those great records from the 60s or whatever, you listen to what's an example? You know, like a Gary U.S. Bonds record, that, you know, they are so joyous. There is so much life and vibrancy to them. But if you ever have a chance to listen to any of the isolated tracks on them, the bleed is just tremendous. You can hear people talking in the room. But when it's all mixed together, there is, like I said, this vibrancy, this liveliness to it that you can't. Well, maybe you can, but it's nearly impossible to try to recreate in an artificial environment. It's organic. It just happens. And I think that the great art, it isn't so much always a matter of the process of being able to write this stuff or create this stuff. It's more about recognizing it when it comes by and grabbing it. I think that for myself, you know, songwriting is like that. I often don't feel like molded something or created something. It's more like I recognized it when it went past me and I grabbed it. And that is it really sort of comes down to a sense of taste, I think. And with Greaseland, he has this system set up where it's a little easier to catch that lightning in a bottle. The genius of it is in him recognizing the lightning when it goes by and grabbing it at that moment.
Well said. Well, very well stated, Maurice Tani. Speaking about Little Village and Greaseland Studio and Kid Anderson, Jim Pugh, the whole gang that make these wonderful records, all for the artist. It's an artist. It's by artists for artists, supported network, which is an incredibly beautiful thing in 2022. It's kind of hard to conceive of when we look at the regular banter that comes across our screens every day about nonsense.
Once again, it's a non-profit label set up by a musician, and one of the most shocking things about it is Little Village makes no money from any of these projects. It's donor supported, and when you buy a Little Village record from a Little Village artist, the artist gets 100% of the money. Little Village owns no intellectual property, has never made a dime off of any of these albums because it is donor supported. That's how this whole thing works. And so if you're interested in this particular model or in Little Village in general, I would say send people to littlevillage.com, and there's descriptions there about how the whole thing works, and if you are so inspired, you can hit the donate button and contribute to this really interesting project.
Absolutely, Maurice, and I want to thank you for covering all of this. I mean, I just love explaining Little Village and playing their music and sharing it with our audience and hoping that they're going to go and follow through. Where can they pick up All In? Should somebody want a physical copy?
Well,
of
I
that?
think All In is it just came out. It's on it's on iTunes, and we just put it up on Port Merch. I think you can get it through Amazon. You can go to my website, mauricetani.com, and I'll sell you hard copies from there if you're not into the download thing. Listen, before we leave here, I want to mention one thing that I mentioned to you before we hit the air, and that is what you are doing with community radio, college radio, public radio. This is so important for all of the arts, and especially in America, where so much of our media is channeled through these large conglomerates, media conglomerates that control many stations, many television outlets, and the media in general. I was raised on Top 40 radio, which was, it almost seems strange now, but it was a sort of something for everybody kind of format. And you would be listening and you'd hear Motown, followed by rock and roll, followed by some Latin number, followed by a comedy record, followed by, who knows what. It was just one thing after another. And I was probably maybe 10 or 12 before I realized that these were different types of music. I thought that they were just different songs, but they're actually different genres of music. And we heard all of this stuff mashed up in this same media outlet called Top 40. Today, the way the media is set up, it's very, I'm going to make up a word here, nichified. Anything you want to hear, you can hear it. You want to hear Bruce Springsteen from 1986 through 1988, only medium tempo? There's probably a satellite station that does just that. You can hear anything you want to hear. But the question is, where do you hear stuff that you don't know you want to hear? Where do you get surprised? Where do you hear new stuff? The answer is college radio, community radio, public radio. This is where you can still be surprised. You can still hear things that are new. And it's media that is curated by people like you that find stuff that is good, you present it to the public, and the public trusts and relies on you for hearing this new kind of material. And this is the stuff that Little Village puts out, and this is the way it gets to people via people like you. So thank you very much for doing what you do and what everybody in college community and public radio does. I know what kind of a fortune you are making just doing this kind of work. And because I've seen all those limousines in the parking lots of public radio stations.
Well, the value. Thank you very much. You are welcome. And the value for me is the the personal equity that I build from the acknowledgments of folks like yourself. You know, we both acknowledge it's a two-way street. You know, we need your music as much as you need us to share it with our audience. So it's a truly symbiotic relationship, Maurice. And, you know, my phone number, our phone number is always open for you. I'm going to encourage you, if you don't already write any prose, you might want to start with like a blog, because I'd be fascinated for you just to read, you know, little essays of your thoughts, because you really have a talent for articulating them, other than in songs. So.
Oh, well, thank you very much. It's you know, with a proper amount of coffee, I can get quite gabby.
Well, I'm going to relieve you of your desk at the moment and encourage you to get some fresh air as we turn the table here. But on the way out, I want to play another part of me, which is the first song on All In, one that if there were a single hit off of this collection, this one might fit the bill, I would say, in a blues way. But before we do that, Maurice, you know, thank you for sharing with us the music and just a little bit of your time on this Friday morning so that we could get to know you better.
It was a pleasure, Mark. I hope the rest of your day is as pleasant as this seems.
Yes, it shall be. So we're going to kick it off here, this last half hour of our program for the moment, with another part of me. Thank you, Maurice. It's been really great talking to you. Have a wonderful day.
All right. Thank you out there, and go see Wolves.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, intellectually, I know why you walked out that door. It made sense to me. You couldn't do it anymore. And that part of me has come to terms with the score. And emotionally, that was a tough road to hoe. It tore me up inside, but I had to learn to let go. And that part of me knows you reap what you sow. But there's another part of me that's got a mind of its own, that really should have faded, but instead it has grown. You came to your senses, I came to mine too. But there's another part of me that's still crazy about you. Realistically, we never really stood a chance. The heart and mind agreed, we knew the plot in advance. And our tale would be a star-crossed romance. But there's another part of me that's got a mind of its own, that really should have faded, but instead it has grown. You came to your senses, I came to mine too. But there's another part of me that's still crazy about you. Crazy about you. But there's another part of me that's still crazy.
All right, all the way from Oakland and Berkeley and the West Coast Bay Area, Maurice Tani, all in. Check out Maurice at mauricetani.com or go to Little Village's website, littlevillagefoundation.org, for more information about All In. Check it out on your music service, whichever that is. And otherwise, keep your dial here on 90.1 WUSB and Fermented Radio Fridays, where you'll learn about folks like that, Maurice Tani, and all the Little Village artists that we're able to get a project from. You know, not all of them are promoted, but the ones that are, we're going to share with you. We're going to try and get them on, and yeah, that's how we do it. So 2:35 in the afternoon here at WUSB in Stony Brook. It's the If This Be Treason program. Marc Greene